about to hear a revolution in talk radio, Liberty Talk Radio, where the critical thinking will defrag your mind of propaganda-ridden viruses induced by mass media news programming. No BS here, just the facts.
And now we present to you America's quintessential iconoclastic anomaly. Wow. In talk radio, your host, Joe Cristiano.
Welcome, everyone, to Liberty Talk Radio, America's libertarian voice, broadcasting from our studio in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to around the world. I'm your host, Joe Cristiano, and this is your antidote to popular talk radio. Folks, it's time for us to take back control of our government now before this bureaucratic, oversized, and self-serving federal government starves us of our property, our freedom, our rights, and our liberty. But to do this, we must shed conventional thinking regarding our political structure. We need to be revolutionaries in thought, dissidents in action. Only after we recognize what our government is doing to our freedom and our Constitution will we start taking it back. And this program is just about that. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to discuss a little bit about the words that are not being said about the wall between the United States, that's being built between the United States and Canada and Mexico. I find it absolutely astounding that no politician, or these crooked politicians, make any reference to the Berlin Wall when we talk about the wall with Mexico. You know, we say, oh no, it's different. We're a free country. We're not a free country. We're no less free than, we're no more free than anybody else. In fact, we're less free than most other countries. But when we build a wall, all we talk about is keeping the people who are immigrating from Central America primarily to the United States, mostly Mexico, Honduras, and San Salvador. What we don't discuss is the ability for Americans to go from the United States into Mexico. You know, we only talk about one side of the equation. What about the other side of the equation? Aren't we now encasing America? If we're going to build a wall with Mexico, why don't we build a wall with Canada? I mean, there are people can walk right from Canada, walk right through to the United States. There's no wall there. There may be a barbed wire fence or a little fence or a post or a sign or something like that. But for the most part, it's open plain. Boy, you can come in droves, but yet there's no wall there. And how about the wall with Texas and the Gulf of Mexico? If I had a boat, I can land it right on a beach on the border of Texas, and there'd be no one there to greet me. You know, I can get off the boat and just I'll be in Texas, period. You know, in fact, I almost bought some land, you know, in Galveston, you know, and all it is a strip of land in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. I mean, right off the shore, the border of the landmass of Texas. And because I used to live there, I used to live in Houston, and you can get be on the beach and look out and see 100 miles out, and there's nothing there. Boats come in and out all the time. No one knows where. You can stop a boat, within, several yards from the coast, get off. In fact, the water's very shallow. Walk in and bingo, you're in. What are we going to do? Are we going to put a wall around the entire beach so only people can swim out a certain period, a certain length? I mean, it's ridiculous what we're doing. What we should be doing is we should be opening the border. Now they say, well, Joe, all these people are going to come in. There's drug traffickers and people like that. That's terrible. Well, the problem is not the drug traffickers. What the trouble is the fact that America has a war on drugs. The war on drugs makes the business of importing illegal drugs extremely profitable. Well, what if there was no war on drugs? I mean, what does it cost to grow crops that are eventually made into drugs? Well, practically nothing. It's inexpensive. They've grown all over the world. It's very easy to grow anywhere, right? So all of a sudden, the profit derived from importing illegal drugs totally dries up. Well, if it totally dries up, what happens to the drug cartel? They go bankrupt. If you want to bankrupt the cartel, don't bring in troops. Don't spend billions of dollars every year trying to, millions, and I'm sure billions now, trying to stop it. Make drugs legal. You legalize drugs, there's no money in it. If there's no money in it, you put the cartel out of business. But we can't think that way. We think so in such a linear fashion, so short-sighted, that we do all the wrong things. Well, my objection is that the wall goes over private property, goes over state lands, it goes over Indian reservations, and all these, the federal government has no say in it. And not only that, what bothers me, and I don't know all the legal mumbo-jumbo behind this, but the wall is being built not on federal property, it's being built on state property. Now, if it's state property, shouldn't the state have something to say about it? I mean, if the state says, I don't want a wall, leave it alone. What does the federal government have to say about it? Then the federal government has to bring the state to court and they have to argue it. But we don't hear anything about that. I just assume that the border itself is somehow a restricted covenant of the federal government. But I don't think that's the case. I'm not sure, but I don't think it's the case. But the whole point is that people want to come here to work. During the 1930s, for example, during the Great Depression, the immigration from Mexico to the United States dropped to zero, basically. And the reason for that is there were no jobs here. People come here to work. Americans are born here, and then all of a sudden, they're entitled to money if they don't work. Well, let's bring in the people who want to work and stop giving money to people who don't want to work. Wouldn't that make a lot more sense? But no, we give money to people who don't want to work, and we keep people out who do want to work. Have I lost my mind? I mean, this is supposed to be a free country. Look at the Statue of Liberty. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free. I think it's the little inscription on it, yearning to be free. And people came over here. My father came here. He didn't apply. He got on a boat, wound up on Ellis Island. He gave him the name. He gave him some identification. They gave him a test to see if he had some transmittable disease, whatever that was at the time. And he came in. Did he have a job? No. Did he get welfare? No. Did he know what he was going to do? No. Did he have a trade? No. But he went to Italian Ghetto, stayed with a friend, got a job. His first job, he said, was in a Polish piano factory, and they beat the hell out of him every day because he worked so hard. Because he was so afraid of losing his job, he always outperformed everyone else. And they beat him up at the end of every day, hoping he wouldn't come back the next day. But he had to. He was starving. So he came back the next day and worked in a Polish piano factory. And it's a remarkable story. Anyway, my father did wind up opening a factory sewing ladies' gloves. This is when the women wore gloves. It was fashionable to do so. And at one time he went from being totally destitute to owning a factory with 200 people being employed there on First Avenue between 123rd and 124th Street. I remember, I lived there, and I helped my father. Didn't help with the business. I think I was a more hindrance than anything else. I was a little kid at the time. And I'm talking about 70 years ago. But, my father came here to work. The people from Mexico are wonderful people. The people from Honduras are wonderful people. The people from San Salvador are wonderful people. There's nothing wrong with them. The people who are dealing in drugs are not coming over here. The people are dealing drugs are sending the drugs here. The people are leaving those places because they have so much money, they now control the towns. Since they control the towns, they control the people. Because they have all the money, they control the politicians. The people can't live anymore. They're slaves to their own kind, basically, to their own government that's corrupt and has been corrupted because of the drug money that has been earned by U.S. citizens using drugs. But for some reason, we just can't see that. We have to say, oh, drugs are bad, eliminate drugs. But we don't see what the consequences are. Quite frankly, you want to take drugs? Take drugs. I don't care. That's your business. I don't take drugs. I mean, I take drugs when the doctor says you got to take this medication, for whatever, and I resist doing that. And I know that's not even good for me. And I try to stay away from many drugs as possible. I do take some vitamins, stuff like that. And that's supposed to be good for you, But that's not illegal. No one's being harmed. That's a choice that I made. Why don't we do that? Why don't we, if we made drugs legal, we would bankrupt the entire drug cartel. Now, let's assume we built this 2,000-mile wall that goes over mountains, goes over waterways, goes over reservations, goes over cities. I mean, it's just a nightmare. And every few miles, every mile costs between $400,000 to $10 million, depending on what it's going over. It is an insane project. And then we right now have 20,000 people monitoring that wall, and it's not enough. Well, we have a bloated federal government. We want to know why? Because we keep on voting for a bloated government. We keep on voting for a government that keeps on expanding the number of employees it needs to restrict our rights, our liberty, our freedom. And we think it's good. There are very few, even my friends, very few of my friends that will even consider the fact that we should not build a wall. I never discuss it with them because they speak angry when they talk about the wall. We need a wall. We got to build it. Why don't we stop these liberals from preventing us from building a wall? We got to keep all those drug addicts out. Well, you can't discuss when people are irrational. And it seems like the entire United States is irrational. Sometimes I think maybe our politicians are making money, not only building the wall, but they're making money on the drugs that are coming in. I don't know that to be a fact. I'm not accusing anybody, but it sure seems that way. I mean, they're so adamant about building this stupid wall that they must be making money on the deal. And most likely making money from the federal contractors building the wall. Well, I wanted to make this really a very short broadcast, and I'm going to have more very short broadcasts in the future, just talking on aspects and maybe taking a point of view that you don't hear in the mainstream media or even on the internet. But folks, this is supposed to be a free country. If we think the Mexicans should be stay out because they're going to violate our rights, then should we not give the United States back to the Indian tribes? Did we not? Were we invited here? No, we just came here. And as a result of coming here, we took their land. We had treaties with them. We broke most if not all of the treaties, Now, we did it, but we didn't come here to work. We came here to confiscate. Now, that's okay. But if someone wants to come here to work, then we say, oh no, we can't, because the job should belong to Americans who don't want to work. Well, folks, I hope you found this to be a little enlightening. I'm really concerned that we are taking the wrong approach, not only to the wall, but we are encasing America. We are building walls around everything that we build. Everything is becoming restricted. We're going to have border people. We're going to have more police. We're going to have more everything. We're becoming a police state. I think we're losing our freedom slowly but surely, little by little. And each one seems to be justified. And I think the wall is a big hurdle. Once we have the wall, Then what next? Then another restriction. The government already enforces so many laws and regulations. We want to go in business, we have to fill out papers, justify everything, get licenses and everything. The government seems to control everything. We are no longer a free nation. We are a nation of laws, of unconstitutional laws. And building the wall is not constitutional. And who is Donald Trump to tell me, who can come in and out, especially if I own property, which I don't, but if I own property on the wall and I say, hey, it doesn't bother me at all. I don't want a wall there. Who is the President of the United States? A guy who has no interest in this whatsoever, no stake in this at all, other than thinking he's being a big wheel by saying, we're going to build a wall no matter what everyone thinks. What is he, the mafia? We got the mafia in office now. Well, I'll stop ranting right now, and I hope tomorrow, this is Tuesday, Wednesday night, we should have Andy Sutton come in and as our guest, and we're going to have a short show for maybe 10, 15 minutes, and he wants to talk about some of the economic issues that we face today. I hope you can join us, all right? And with that, I will tell you that this is the end of today's broadcast, and we'd like to thank our sponsors for the financial support, and we'd like to thank you for listening in. You can further the cause of liberty by recommending this program to your friends and let us hear from you. Email address is comments@libertytalkradio.com. All right, for now, goodbye, stay well, and stay tuned.